right, Slick Talkers, welcome back. Good morning, and get ready to go to school because I have an amazing guest. And today we're going to talk all things about how to get your business ready to sell, how to grow a property management company, and what does work-life balance really mean to entrepreneurs and founders as we're all kind of just figuring this thing out. So, Fouad, welcome to the podcast once again. For the listeners that don't know, this is 2.0 of our recording time.
2.0 is always better than 1.0.
Amen, baby. So, Fouad, you and I have gotten to get to know each other consistently every year since the first Level Up Your Listing Summit last year in Arizona. We got to talk to you again this year. You guys were a sponsor the year before as well. You've done some cool things. You have Crescent Retreats, now you have the Pool Guys, and you're building your company to sell. So I want to dive in, but before we cover all those topics, where does it all begin for you, my friend?
Man, it starts in the great state of Ohio. OH to all your Buckeyes that are listening here. I'm, 21-year corporate banker, 20-year corporate banker. Huge. The last 11 years of that was on the bank consulting side. So, I got to focus on building relationships and doing all kinds of, great travel and all kinds of fun things. I mean, my job was, I probably had one of the coolest jobs in all of banking, where 80% of my time was spent with the CEOs of banks on golf courses and in football stadiums, just mingling, building relationships, and then all the way down their org chart. And, and I loved it. I'm great at building relationships. I love people. We moved around a lot when I was young. And I think for me, that set a standard of, go love the people next door, go meet your new neighbors, go do this, and just get entrenched in the communities that you're moving into. And so after in 2019, we had our third kid, and I was traveling 15 weeks out of the year. While all of it was just beautiful and awesome and so much fun, I wanted to be home. I had 3 kids. I really wanted to be home. I didn't want to be traveling so much anymore. So I left corporate. I gave my boss a 7-month notice because I loved my job. I was very committed to my clients. I was very committed to my company that I worked for. I was very committed to everybody except for myself, mostly. And then we could talk. That's something I can get really philosophical about. So I started a coffee shop with some with a play place inside of it, and we partnered with schools to host field trips, and it was kind of like museum-ish, and we roasted our own coffee, and we catered to birthday parties, any kinds of event that you could think of. And then COVID hit, turned left like 3 times, and we were a tenant in that building, and our landlord was relentless, would not give us any breaks. So we went 7 months without any ability to generate revenue because of the lockdown, especially here in Michigan, it prolonged. So, that was the epiphany for me, that I really just never need to be a tenant again. I needed to become the landlord. I really needed to get into real estate investing, and that needed to be the primary focus. And so I had some long-term rentals here locally that I had bought up in the meantime, and I hated that. And so, and for a lot of reasons, I needed a personal home in Huntington Beach. Well, there was one reason. It was my daughter. She had some doctors there that we had to visit frequently for 6 weeks, every 6 weeks for 3 years. And so we got into that program and bought a house and put it on Airbnb. Well, we bought that house and 2 others in Scottsdale simultaneously. So we went from 0 to 3 right away. And it just became this thing, and it became a company. And now that company is at 10 homes. We raised, the first 3, we put our own money into. And after that, I discovered the 3 best letters in real estate, OPM, other people's money. So we've scaled the rest of our portfolio using that. The goal is to hit $100 million portfolio in 5 years. We're 2 years into this thing, and we're at about 18. So we got a little work to do. And now we're discovering, bolt-on short-term rental services that we can add on. So like the pool servicing company and all of that. So long enough introduction. I'll stop there.
No, I love it. And, I always hear from people, especially from like my mom growing up. She would always say, man, like, Will, you always try new things. Like I was always doing stuff and then ended up like not liking it. And she kind of like had this conclusion recently. She's like, I feel like you had to try a lot of stuff to figure out what you didn't want to do. Did you feel like with the coffee experience, the landlord tenant side of things, long-term rentals, you had to kind of go through that in order to figure out like, I really don't like this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Because I had a big itch to go into retail big. Like I really wanted to expand the locations. I wanted to get really big into it. And then I am glad. It's such a blessing because it did make me realize that retail was not where I wanted to be. And now that I'm doing this, I absolutely love this. I mean, we still, because I had such an itch for meeting people, I've got into an industry again that I really get to just meet a lot of people doing great, amazing things, whether it's they have 1 unit or 100 units, doesn't matter. You meet so many great people, so many great visions and creative ideas in the space. And then you get to go on the journey with your guests too, right? So it's like even meeting them. And then, in 2.5 years, this is something I really pride myself on. We've had over 45 repeat visitors.
Nice.
And I love that because that means, it's easy to get anybody to stay once, but when you get them to stay twice, it's, that means you're doing something right. And that's the beginning of building a relationship, right? And I love that. I really love that.
Why did you guys move around so much growing up? Was any of your parents in the military, or was there kind of like I'm very curious. Like, why did you guys move around so much?
Just engineering. My dad was an engineer. So he worked for the auto supply chain. And so, moved around from Toledo to Dallas, San Jose to St. Louis. And the majority of the childhood was in St. Louis. And then my dad he worked on window seals. And so he patented some thing. I wish I should know this. It kind of makes me bad something that I don't know this, but he patented something in the window seals and GM wanted that. So they bought the patent off him. They moved him up here, made him an engineer. And then his career kind of took off. And so we've been up here in the Detroit metro area for, since I was 7 or 8 years old. Yeah. And I'll be 42 in a couple of months next month.
42 is the new 22. It's what I hear.
It is, man. It is.
I love it. Well, that's super cool. And I was really impressed from someone who I know you used short-term rentals as a guest and a traveler, especially going to California for your daughter's treatments and all that stuff. But I'm curious, how did you know to set your business up, Crescent Retreats, in order to have the repeat guest ability from a booking, like a direct book website, all these things that kind of, I feel like if you haven't had hospitality experience before from maybe like me, like coming from a hotel world to short-term rentals, a lot of people don't know that there's a tech stack and there's this thing called a PMS and a channel manager and all this stuff, right? So how did you initially just figure that out right in the beginning?
Yeah, just a lot of studying, a lot of homework, a lot of learning. I'm a relentless learner, somebody that will never stop learning. I'm an avid and addicted masterminder. Basically, I join masterminds anywhere I can, just so I can learn from people that are already doing things right. Compress time and spend either spend time making mistakes or you spend time learning from other people. So I'd rather learn from other people all day long. But I think I attribute my corporate experience to that. Being a consultant, I mean, you have to go in, you have to be very solution driven, you have to be very studious, you have to understand markets and industries and different things that go on. So I've been around long enough, to know that, if you're going to scale a business, if you're going to create a company, you better go really, really understand this thing. And quite frankly, there's enough information out there. I don't think free information is anybody's guide to their ultimate success, but free information can really get you very far. And there's a lot of free information that our industry provides that's on YouTube, that's, all over the place. And so I utilized every resource that I could to learn quickly. And love that.
All right, Slick Talkers. Fouad is obviously a really cool guy. He's building his company to sell, and super exciting because there's now a real estate asset portion and then there's a property management asset portion. Both great businesses to run, especially when they're vertically integrated. When you're building a property management brand and company like he is, then you need to have certain tools in place. Certain tools, like Minute, are a great tool to give you a little bit more operational freedom in order to have your own co-host. And why I say your own co-host is that Minute detects extra devices that shouldn't be there. If you have multiple guests with their own friends that they bring, and maybe you have occupancy of 6, but you have 12, 14, 15, 20 devices connected, that could also be a red flag for a party, which then pisses off your neighbors and no one wants that. So get with Minute because they also do noise detection and smoke detection. They're 100% privacy safe, meaning as Airbnb has just banned indoor cameras, if you have indoor cameras in your properties, that's already a big no-no in my book, whether Airbnb banned it or not. So get with Minute. Get that out of there, replace it, get the actual co-host solution that you need. Minute, you can use the link in the show notes. You get 2 months free. They're amazing. I love working with them and using them in my properties, and I know you will too. So we're back to the episode with Fouad and diving in to more things entrepreneurial in short-term rentals. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and back to the episode. I love it. I've heard from many people who've listened to this show and other shows on our network that they onboarded into a company that their founder or CEO was on, and they had to listen to the podcast and they had to go back and listen to X, Y, and Z episodes. And so I think like mediums like this, right, opens up so many doors too. So shout out to all the listeners out there that make this possible. But
yeah, and you know what? I'd like to name drop only because I love doing it. I love giving credit where it's due. And what second time I was in this mastermind group that's no longer around, but I met a gentleman named Stephen Petaski, and Stephen Petaski is like the GOAT of luxury vacation rental living. He doesn't do short-term rental the way we do it. He's much more on the kind of like the what's that membership one? I'm trying to blank right now. You know, the big, beautiful homes with the membership that you can join. And
it's not One Fine Stay, but it's I think I know what you're talking about. They're based out in New York. They're kind of like a hotel company.
Yeah, kind of.
I know.
I can't think of it, but anyways, he runs them all very similarly to that. And then, so Stephen was a keynote speaker at one of these things, and he was sitting next to me at a table. I had no idea it was a keynote speaker, so we were chopping it up, and I was still just closing on our first 3. And so, we built a really good relationship that day, and we've been in touch ever since. But I give him the credit for a lot of my drive because, on this space, because where I thought I was just going to be investing in a few homes, he's the one that really planted the seed in how I could take something and make it really huge.
Well, 100 million in 5 years in asset management or ownership is not a small goal. It's a big, big goal. And I recently was reading in a book, it's better to make a bigger goal than to create a bunch of small goals, because 10x growth is better than 2% X growth. And I think when our minds kind of get wrapped around that goal setting, the book is called Lucky You. So like a psychiatry book by a psychiatrist, and talks about how, all these things about basically creating your own luck. Really good book. Really short too for all the listeners. But basically for you to like to create this goal, you've recently, I know when we first recorded, you had the opportunity of an offer for Crescent Retreats to be acquired. So there's the asset side where you guys own the homes, and then there's the management side where you take care of the guests, you have a management fee, you do all the things on the hospitality business. What piece of advice, because I know this is just an offer, right? Like you haven't been acquired, you're still building, you're still growing. You just want to sell the management, you don't want to sell the assets. I'm curious, advice for the listeners that maybe are like me who never intended or had the idea of like, oh my gosh, should I actually sell this thing one day? To then, oh yeah, I definitely want to have an exit, but I don't know what that looks like. How do you kind of work around that, especially on the path going forward? And I know for myself, I'm a true, EOS visionary where I get distracted. I get distracted by shiny object syndrome, where there's always an opportunity. There's always a way to vertically integrate. There's always a new side venture that can tie to the main one, right? Like there's all these things that definitely can distract from the main core mission. What's your advice for entrepreneurs in our industry?
Well, you just hit it. EOS. I mean, that's I run my business on EOS, and I also coach and mentor on EOS as well. That's something I'm very. I think is probably the biggest benefit that I didn't even realize I had being in corporate for 20 years. Is you're so incorporated and doctrined into process, and and when you're in corporate, you hate process, and you wonder why there's so much political red tape and all this stuff. But then you start running your own company, and you're like, oh, that's why. And so being able to really understand and stay in your lane. But to summarize all of it, I would say you have to start with the end in mind, and the end. You've got to have multiple exit strategies, right? And so for me, it was simple. It was build something to sell. And if it never sells, that's okay, because I'll have built it so much bigger than I probably would have ever had I not been building it to sell. And then I get to manage it if it doesn't sell and operate it, right? So building it with multiple exit strategies is a really big deal for me. You start with that end in mind. What is that end goal? Slow growth happens because people are operating in a forward path. But what you really want to do is once you have all of that the goals and the end established, being able to reverse engineer that now, break it down, right? So if this is where I want to be in 5 years, well, what do I need to be doing in 4 years in order to hit 5 years? Okay, so if it's 100 million in 5 years, I better be at 80 million in 4 years, right? Meaning I better be at 60 million in 3, I better be at 40 million in 2. And so this year, what do I got to do? How do I break that down now into 90-day increments so that every action I take is towards where I want to be? That's that is the fundamental, that's the foundation of EOS. And it does give clarity, because I'm like you. I'm a shiny squirrel guy. Or shiny object guy. I love just being, I'm a hammer and the world is a nail to me, and I just want to hit everything, right? So it really does help you stay focused and clear and say no to the things that don't drive you towards your goal. Because it's really easy to say yes to just everything. And by nature, I'm a yes man. I love to just go and do and serve and all those other things. But this has really allowed me to stay focused and clear and loyal to myself, because my default is to be loyal to everybody else before me.
How do you truly know when to say no?
Does it fit? I mean, so once you operate on EOS and you build out all of your stuff, you build out all of your directionary, what is my lane? What is my org chart? What are my goals? If I see something that doesn't fit in my goals for today, but it's interesting and I really want to, what EOS allows and teaches is there's an issues board. So you go put that on your issues board. So in the future, when you're writing your next 90-day window, does that come onto this one, or does it stay on the issues board for the next 90 days, for the next 90 days, for the next 90 days, right? So everything just goes on your issues board. And then when it's time to renew your rocks for the 90 days, you just refresh it. But then you just got to get really clear and committed.
Really good. Tell me about being loyal to yourself now instead of just being loyal to others. What does that mean to you?
So societally, we've butchered the phrase. We've butchered two words. One is loyalty and one is selfishness. And historically, we've looked at people that really just take care of themselves, prioritize themselves first as selfish people, right? But the problem with that is if you don't fill up your own cup, if you don't first take care of what you want to do, and you don't put yourself on the pathway, and you're not satisfied with the results that you have for yourself, eventually that's where burnout takes place, right? And once you're at burnout, you can't not only help yourself, but you can't help other people as well. And so it's imperative, in my opinion, to take care of yourself first. It's imperative to prioritize yourself the way you would other people. Now, that doesn't mean stop giving to everybody else immediately and only take care of yourself, because that's not fulfilling. At least for me, that's not fulfilling. Now, so you just have to put everything in its own bucket. But when being committed to yourself means this is the promise. And Kobe Bryant talked about this. I love this when he said, they asked him one time, a practice, and he said, about practicing hard and whatnot. And he said, the contract was signed. I made a commitment to myself, and I wasn't negotiating with myself. I wasn't doing that, right? We negotiate with others all the time, or we don't negotiate with others all the time. We keep our word and we keep our promise to everybody else all the time, but for ourselves, we don't. And so that to me really, it stuck with me when I read that. And I think it's really important. You have to take care of yourself first in order to be able to do all those other things.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it kind of reminds me of the airplane scenario, right? Put the oxygen mask on yourself before the kids.
Yeah.
That way you can take care of them, right? Like if you give it to them first and then you pass out, great. Like now your kid is stuck without an adult, and who knows what can happen. So I that's kind of what I see. It's all easier said than done, though, right? Like, how have you actually managed to put yourself first and not let yourself either A, get taken advantage of, or B, know that deep in your heart, like you want to help this person, you want to be a giver, but in the end of the day, like you are on the edge of burnout, you are tapped out, you are kind of ready to just throw in the towel sometimes. I feel like it comes down to that moment, right? Like where you have to, like you're just talking about, that contract to yourself. That contract to yourself is easily, in my opinion, and this might be contradicting, but it's easily broken, in my opinion. I feel like I can break the contract to myself more often than I can break it to others.
Mm. And I think that's probably true with most people because we want to be, a person of our word. But you have to be a person of your word to yourself too. I mean, when you lie to yourself, I mean, here's the thing, right? Every time you speak, there's only one person that hears you 100% of the time, and it's yourself, right? And so if you say things like, I can't, your brain believes you. And Bruce Lee used to talk about this. Bruce Lee said, don't talk about yourself, even in a joking manner. Don't say negative things about yourself, because your brain, when it hears it, it does not decipher between joke and real. Your brain just accepts it as truth. And so, when you make yourself a promise, if you don't do it, what you're actually doing is you're feeding yourself back, you're giving yourself negative feedback. Like, I can't do this, or I won't do this, or I'm not committed to myself. You have to commit to yourself. It's so important. I mean, I could tell you a story about, in masterminds, they tell you that when you join masterminds, that you're going to level up your friendships. You're going to change the people you hang out with on a daily basis and your relationships. And I walked in there saying, no, there's no way that'll ever happen. I'm loyal to all my friends and blah, blah, blah. And then I realized I was in this room full of amazing humans, just great people that were paying to all be there and invest in themselves. But they were all there to push not only themselves, but everybody around them too, right? And then I started really doing an audit of all the relationships that I had. And great. My friendships are my brothers. I mean, like, I love these people I grew up with, guys that I would do anything for. But I love them. I don't like them. And that's what I realized is I've kind of outgrown all those, things that we used to do, the old bad habits that we used to have, and things, it just didn't serve me anymore. I've got a beautiful wife that I absolutely adore and love. I've got a business to run. I've got my 3 kids that are my top 3 priorities in my life. So to fit just like friendships, just for the sake of friendships into that equation, there's just not a lot of room there anymore, right? And so in order to bolster everything that I'm doing, because everything we do is for our kids, I had to be around people that were going to push me, make me better, make my business better, and people that I could give back to where the value was equal. And so, I've got into these rooms. I've built great friendships and great brotherhoods with some of these people that are in this room. And the specific mastermind that I keep referencing is the boardroom mastermind with Kent Clothier, because it's absolutely changed my life. But, it's just being around great people. Yeah.
I love that. And on the podcast a while back with a couple other guests, we've talked about the amount of masterminds, coaches, influencers in the space, right? And there's a lot of, I would say specifically for short-term rentals, Airbnb, for the people that are listening, I'm putting air quotes around that because I know there's some people that hate calling the industry Airbnb. But, this in the sense of it can be quite a lot. And I think just from your perspective, since that you are quote unquote, addicted to masterminds and being in the room, how do you tell when a mastermind's good and when you should actually invest in it? Because I think a lot of people have been burnt by these coaches, these influencers, these masterminds that change names every 90 days because it didn't work and they're just trying to do a money grab again. But we'd love to know kind of your kind of guide, a 101 to masterminds, and how listeners on the podcast should actually approach a mastermind if they're actually interested and curious to join one.
Absolutely great question. This is probably my favorite question. I was the first one that I joined did turn out to be a little bit of a flop. It was some of the heaviest hitters that you could think of in any business or real estate space. Picture being in a room, 75 people, and Nas is standing in the middle of the room doing a private performance for you and pouring in, and Deion Sanders comes and right. It was as flashy as it looked like it was going to be. We thought we would get a lot more value out of it. And after my second event, you get 3 events for the year kind of thing. After my second one, I was like, the culture for me just was not the fit. And that's when I sat back and I said, okay, what is this? What am I doing with this whole mastermind thing? Well, then I came across Kent Clothier. He has, the boardroom mastermind. He's out of San Diego. So what I did is before I joined his group, I spent the $10K to go spend a whole day with him, unravel my whole business, get a whole day with him to just kind of dive really, really deep and get a good feel for, is he the real deal or not? Well, he's the GOAT. I can assure you that. But beyond that, what you get out of the guy that founds the mastermind, you get a tiny bit of their time, right? Because when you show up to the mastermind, there's the production has to happen, the show has to happen, the schedule has to work, everybody wants a little bit of that person's time. So who are the cohort of individuals that are in that group? Who is in that group? Are they people that are doing exactly what you want to be doing? And do they fit your core values mostly, right? So I attended the first one as a guest, and I quickly got to see people were there with their spouses. People were there talking about their kids. People were not, when the show was over and nighttime came out and the networking party came out, it wasn't just a whole bunch of, hoorah and partying. It was really good stuff. I mean, it was people that were still pouring into each other. They were there for growth. They were there for relationships, and it was awesome. And I would say get really comfortable with the cohort of people that are in the mastermind more so than the person that's leading the mastermind, because that's who you're going to learn from the most.
Really good. Yeah. And I think a lot of messages and themes I think we've had in the podcast as well as one of it's great to learn from leaders, but a lot of the times I feel like I learn a lot more with my peers, with people that are at the same level as me and that we're kind of all moving at that same pace. Not to say that you can't learn from people that are way ahead of you, but I feel like the peers aspect is super undervalued in our industry where everyone's just trying to get with the next bigger person. But in reality, like you have a group of people that are right here in the trenches with you and probably would go up to bat and willing to die for you in some shape or form, right? So I think it's a really good message and theme that you just shared there. Oh, tell me about the time with your daughter. So you guys had to basically travel every 6 weeks to California. You bought your first property there on top of the other two in Arizona. What was that like? And what learnings and lessons did you have that applied to your growth that you are, for the man that you are today?
Yeah. So my daughter, I mean, it was, for the sake of everybody listening, it wasn't dire or anything like that. It was just a bunch of food allergies, and the best food allergist in the world is in Long Beach, right? And so, we went from having to carry EpiPens around and all kinds of packs of medicine around and always be scared and ask all the questions at the restaurants. What kind of oil do you cook with? What is this? Who's touching what? And all those other things, right? And constantly being fearful of that, to committing to a process, and really fighting that through and prioritizing, right? But she is the reason that I got into this space. She's the reason that we built this whole thing. And we started really being diligent around, what sensitivities do people have? Not just food allergies, right? But when you get into the short-term rental space, it's not only like, hey, are there nuts allowed at your place now? But, how are you cleaning your place? What is your, what are the expectations of the guests that are coming? Who are the target avatars? And you have to really understand those things, because we became really, really picky about the places and the things that we did, right? Mm-hmm. And so she really helped me, have a lot of foresight into what it is that we wanted to offer and make sure that we were very clear about in our business, so that we could attract a very specific and niche avatar and not just be a place for everybody.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so thankfully she's through the program. Allergies
are gone. We got a huge nut pantry now, and she can rate it anytime she wants. And she's very happy. She's healthy. She's happy. And it's awesome. And anybody that has nut allergies for any of their kids, and it's not, even if they're in their teenage years, it's never too late. Go attack it, because, finding that food freedom is pretty, as a parent, it's amazing. It's very relieving.
Yeah. My parents still have to deal with gluten-free for my brother and sister and all these things and diabetes. And so, yeah, it's definitely a downer sometimes when you go out to a public restaurant or whatever, but
no doubt.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like really excited that she got through that program and all is well. I'm very, very curious. So now we've talked about building your business to set up for sale, right? Like there's got to be an exit, and you're obviously on that route. You have 10 homes under management and ownership. You are consistently growing, and talked about on our first recording, your first offer for someone to buy Crescent Retreats. So walk me through that. What was that offer like? You don't have to share any of the details and the nitty gritty of like the numbers, but when you get something like that, what do you do? What was the process?
Yeah. So it was, it was somebody that I'd been in touch with for a very long time. That's been a mentor to me in the space. And it was what I manifested from the very first time I spoke to this individual, right? So it was everything I wanted it to be. The details were very cool because I would have an opportunity to stay on. So that's a battle I'm fighting with myself, is really understanding, do I want to join the team again? knowing that the entire goal there would be to also make an exit there, and I'd have some share in that company as well, and then I get to kind of come back and start all over again, right? After a 5 to 7 year rodeo. So if it's the right person, I would for sure do it. If it's the right offer, I would for sure do it. I wouldn't do it with, if Vacasa came in and wanted to buy me, it would be a straight sale, not a stay on. I wouldn't want to stay on with an organization like that, right? So, I mean, there's different variables that you have to consider who you're doing it with. But obviously the first thing that you come to fruition with is, man, you're on the right path. No matter where it goes from here, you're on the right path. You're catching the right eyes. You're doing the right things to attract exactly what it is you want. And so, first there's a little bit of a really exciting feeling there, obviously. But then moving on, it's you got to go back to math is the only language in business. And so does the math work? And that's what it's going to come down to. We are still working on numbers. We don't have, none of those are final or presented yet. Conceptually, we're on the same page. But it will come down to math because it has to. I mean, at the end of the day, math is going to be an 80% part of this decision. Like I say, I already checked the boxes of who it is, what it would look like, all that other stuff. So that's the 20%. Now it's just, can we make something work? And, what's neat about this particular offer is it would be on the short-term rental brand side is what would be acquired, and I would keep the real estate. And so I kind of get to hit both of my goals in one shot with this. And the goal will continue to be to scale a real estate portfolio for sure.
All right, guys. So building your business, creating the life, learning the ups and downs, it's never perfect. It's never easy. No product is ever perfect or ever easy, especially if you're building it yourself. But one of our great tools and solutions that we use is Hostfully. Hostfully is our property management platform where we add all of our properties to. We build out the amenities, the listings, all the pictures, descriptions, you name it. And then we can publish it to Airbnb, Vrbo, Whimstay, Booking.com, you name it. All these channels that we have available to us in the Hostfully marketplace and integrations, it's perfect for what we need and what we want. So our homes are all listed there. We use it. And then, of course, we partner with Hudson Creative Studio to do our branded website. And our book direct engine that they have powered and built connects directly with Hostfully. So any of our direct marketing campaigns that go out to our past guests, we actually are able to capture those bookings, capture that information directly into the property management software. And it's just a perfect, beautiful relationship. And we're so thankful for them. So check out the links in the show notes and make sure that you sign up today. Let them know that you heard from Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, or Will Slickers, and they'll take great care of you. Now we're back to the episode with Fouad to learn more about what he's accomplished and obviously what's in the future for their company. So back to the episode. Thanks for tuning in. Can I ask, do you have the assets under a different LLC or business kind of entity and then the management under its own, so that way you have that ability to quickly separate the two, or are they unraveled under one?
No. So yeah, everything is separate. So we do have a holding company. Our holding company, we've got our service side, our holding company, and then we've got our real estate side. Our service side has our construction arm. So anytime that we don't do third-party construction. We just do it for ourselves. But if we do it for ourselves and, every time we do anything on the rehab or rebuild side, all of that spend goes through that company, so that company is also earning some revenue and can also be building to sell as well, right? We've got our short-term rental property management side there. And then each of our homes have its own LLC, and they contract with our property management company.
Great. And I know we talked about EOS and kind of the roles and all the stuff, but I know plenty of people who have been on this show or who are in our networks, and they always talk about just stick to the one thing. There's no need to create, do the management company. Don't do the asset. Don't do the construction. Don't do all these things, right? Do you have an integrator? How do you manage these three?
We do. I do. I do have an integrator. And that's only recent, by the way. I brought in an integrator as a part, and I brought him in as a partner, not just as a wage earner, because I think that's important too. We're going to be running. People are so afraid to give up equity, but it's like, if the goal is really to build $100 million portfolio, giving away some equity is not going to hurt you on the back end. You've got to give people reason to stay and be loyal and grow and an opportunity for them to hit their goals as well. And when you do that and you create all that happiness around you, we get to win as a team now, right? So
For sure. And it's funny because a lot of my friends and I, we always joke that we're equity rich, but we're cash poor sometimes because, business it's a roller coaster. It's not a linear adventure. And I'm very curious for you, any advice for solo founders who don't have, a co-founder or maybe an integrator yet? Like what is there to look forward to in the sense of like, do you need to 100% get an integrator? Should you bring them in as a partner? Can you do it solo? Like, have you done something solo? I'm curious for yourself. Like, what was it like, going from solo founder to now having a partner?
Yeah, I'll tell you. It goes back to your goals. So when we started the show talking about goals, building out the end, start with the end in mind and reverse engineer that. So what are your goals, right? If your goals are to have 5 to 7 properties that you can just run and live on for the rest of your life, do you really need an integrator? No, you probably don't. I mean, that's pretty manageable, I would say, right? And I'm at 10 properties. I just brought my partner on, but it's because we have all these other verticals that we're starting to build out that I need the integrator for those things, because there's things that I just genuinely don't enjoy. Like the asset management, I really don't want to do that. That's not my thing. I'm a marketing guy. I'm a sales guy. I'm a vision guy. I raise capital. I'm a relationship guy. I want to do all of those things. All the other stuff, I have VAs that handle the day to day. I have now I have my partner that's handling all the asset management, right? But it does come down to your goals. And what I love about EOS, one of my favorite things is, and I tell everybody this, and it's beyond EOS. This is just get really clear on your organizational chart. When you know what your goal is, when you know what you're going to build your company to be, don't build the organizational chart that you have today. Build the organizational chart that that's going to fulfill your goals, right? And so if that means it's going to be a 50-person organization, but you're today at 3 people, build your org chart. And if your name goes in 47 boxes, cool. Write your name in 47 boxes. There will be a day that you're going to start fighting yourself from each of those boxes one at a time. But for now, you have to get the visual. Without the visual, it's like I actually give the GPS analogy here all the time, right? So you can't go if you're driving from Denver to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Most people don't know the way how to get there like straight, right? They're going to need a GPS. You got to input everything, and then you got to watch it. You got to look at the map, and then you got to zoom out. And you got to see it. Go build your GPS and understand where you're driving to. Put in your destination. And then once you look at that and you're able to see that on clearly on paper, you're going to start driving in a direction that's going to help you hammer that out. And it's going to happen so much faster than you actually think.
You just answered my next question, which was going to be, okay, I have 4 or 5 employees, but like, how do I make an org chart of 50 when I don't have that ability yet? So that was a perfect response where I didn't even need to ask the question. So thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, love it. I love it. No, it's super interesting, because I find the art of business, especially in our industry, from hotels, hospitality, short-term rentals, even the food and beverage side, which is a whole nother beast. But I find it so interesting in the sense of like, it is truly an art. And I think, there are things that you can learn from EOS and like the skeleton and the template, right? But then making it your own. And especially in our space, and I'll just kind of share like a piece of vulnerability here. I was talking to a mentor of mine who I was like, Ingo, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I feel stuck. I feel like I've hit a ceiling. Honestly, not motivated to continue in a lot of ways where I don't know what to do. And we were talking about, a bunch of the issues kind of happening, and not that there was like crazy issues. It was just more of a me thing. And he's like, Will, too often times you have your creator hat on, not your founder hat. And so the founder side of you is getting neglected, and the creator side is getting way too much attention versus blah, blah, blah. And like, we had a lot of things there, but then also comes to being in touch with our customers. Like, I feel, there's a point where I was so hands off. It was like, on board. All right, great. You're good. See you later. And just make sure that their invoices are hitting every month. But then it really came into a point of like, holy crap, you kind of do need to be more involved. So I guess from my perspective, do you have times where the integration EOS visionary piece doesn't work perfectly? Or do you ever feel like you get to ceilings and you get stuck and all that stuff? Or is this really like a kind of a foolproof system? Because I know we've had Steve Trover with Better Talent on the show many times to talk about EOS and integration and how this all works, especially from the book Rocket Fuel. But I'm curious, is it constantly perfect, or do you have to constantly adjust?
No, we constantly adjust. I mean, and that's why we have the 90-day, every 90 days we have our meetings, right? Every 90 days we're resetting our rocks. We're diving in to see where did we fall short? Where did we not set the bar high enough, or was it way too easy? Where do we need to adjust, and how do we set the next 90 days? So, I mean, at the bare minimum, every 90 days, we're resetting everything we're doing on a daily basis, right? And especially as you continue to evolve and you continue to grow, I mean, there's always going to be some add-ons. One of the things that I do is, even though I have VAs that handle all of our guest communication, because you hit it on that, I love that part of it. I don't do it anymore, but I love that part of it, the guest communication side. So we picked our slowest day of communication just based on all the data that we had, and it's Sunday. Sundays are that's the least day of inquiries, least day of guest communication, all of it. And so on Sundays, my VAs don't work. That's their day off, and that's a day that I get to handle guest communication. It keeps me close to kind of doing what I still really loved to do when I first started, but it also keeps me close to the details in the homes, details in what we do, in our experiences. Keeps me fresh on what are the questions that we're getting on a daily basis, so that I can continue to relate to when my team brings me questions and things of that nature, right? So it's, we find ways, we find our different tweaks, and I have my ways, you might have your ways. They're all a little different in how you get to where you want to go. But no, I mean, you're consistently evolving. I mean, and we're just coming out of you have seasons in your business. I'm just coming out of a season where we were cash strapped. I mean, we were really equity rich, we were really equity heavy, really a little bit leveraged, just in how many projects we were taking on at once. And so we just kind of got through this bottleneck. And we've got kind of a very fresh set of eyes moving forward to make sure that what we just went through doesn't happen again, and how we do that. And so we've already started raising more capital. We've already started doing some other things to kind of backfill and make sure that we're set up with a lot of cushion moving forward. So, I mean, we're doing all the right things, but, it's simply said, I mean, it's a constant evolution, and you can even hear me right now battling in my brain, right? It's just a constant evolution.
All right. Thank God, because I was like, man, I feel like, I've read Rocket Fuel and Traction and all these things. I'm like, okay, am I missing something? I feel like everyone who's done it is just like, oh no, it's great. Like, we're great now. Like, nothing is wrong. And
one of the things my coach says to me, I'm sorry to cut you off. One of the things he says to me that I absolutely freaking love is he says, if you're not experiencing pain, you're not pushing hard enough. You're not trying hard enough. And I love that, because it's like, because he's 100% right. When you're comfortable, when everything is just going really, really easy, that means you've got to kick it up a notch. And that's one of my favorite phrases is kick it up a notch, right? And I coach my kids' sports teams, and I use that with my team as well. Like, they'll call me and be like, hey, we did this, we did this. And, it was such a good day today. We had 18 bookings and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, good job, but kick it up a notch, right? Just because you're doing good you can't do better.
Yeah.
Like, just go kick it up a notch now. Like, good job.
Yeah. I love that. I remember my kind of first day going self-employed after I quit my hotel job. And then my constant thing with going through my head was sink or swim, right? Like, sink or swim, sink or swim. There was a hunger. And I remember that hunger very specifically. Like, it could have moved mountains. Let's just say that. Like definitely was unstoppable. How, my favorite question asking founders, especially once you come into some success, whether it's buying 10 properties and having really good cash flow and, building a team and like all these things that you kind of envision your first day after your corporate job. How do you keep that hunger alive? Do you have anything specifically that you tap into that enables you to keep that passion, that hunger, and that drive?
I think it's the masterminding, to be honest with you. I think when you get in a room full of people that are so wildly successful at what they do, and by the way, more than just in their business, right? Like, it's in their family, it's in their faith, it's in their fitness, it's in everything they do. There's just constant growth around you. And it's not to go in there and compare. I mean, I'm absolutely clear about this. Like, nobody should ever compare themselves to somebody else, right? It's You have to be better than you yesterday. That's it. That's the only battle that you got to be fighting on a daily basis. But you, of course, find inspiration in all the people around you that are doing a lot of really amazing stuff. And so that's for me where I find the constant drive and the constant energy to keep driving really, really hard, is making sure that, hey, it's not going to be straight line in any of the 4 verticals, right? It's not going to be straight line always in your fitness. But that doesn't mean just because you had a bad day in your fitness doesn't mean your finances should struggle. It doesn't mean your faith should struggle. It doesn't mean your family should struggle, right? Or you got in a fight with your wife today. And so the family thing is kind of like edgy today. Still go drive hard in your finances. Go drive hard on your fitness. Go drive hard. So it's like, when one thing is down does not mean those other things have to suffer. And so, just off the book, Think and Grow Rich, finances, family, faith, and fitness, all 4 of those things have to continuously grow on a day-to-day basis, 1% better. And so when one of them is down, it can't hold back the other 3.
Yeah, that's really good. A new question I've been wanting to ask guests on the show, and I didn't get to ask you this last time because it's pretty recent. But if I were to write a book and have a chapter titled from a lesson that I've learned or my guests on the podcast have learned, what would you want your chapter to be titled?
Does it have to be around my business?
No, it could be about anything. A lesson you've learned, life, business, anything.
Yeah. The title of the chapter would probably be something around, feed your kids healthy. I'm a maniac about this. This is my real passion. And when I do make an exit out of our short-term rental, for sure, my last pitch at business in life will be something about educating society around how important it is to proactively fight childhood obesity. I've got, my kids are 9, 8, and 5, and I'm as passionate as anything. We've got a 4-cheat system in our household. So Sunday through Saturday, our kids get 4 cheats, whether it's a piece of cake or a sucker. That's 1 cheat. Like you can't have more than 4, right? And so we installed this when our boys were 5 and 4. So this was years ago. And naturally, the first couple of weeks they were out by Tuesday because they'd have like 3 on Sunday or then 1 more on Monday or Tuesday, and they'd be done. So the 3rd week we had a birthday party, and my wife's cutting them a piece of cake, and I'm like, hey, we're out of cheats. They're having a piece of cake. And so here's a 5 and 4-year-old boy. They start crying, and she's yelling at me. My mother-in-law's yelling at me. Everybody's yelling at me. I'm like, hey, relax. Like, this is discipline. We're about to show them what discipline is, right? And we are more upset than the kids usually, because the kids are very solution driven. Kids are very smart. So the next morning, my son Ahmad, who is 5, he comes to me and he says, hey, I have, this is Monday morning, or this is Sunday morning. So like, I've moved on. I'm not even thinking about it anymore. I'm drinking my coffee. Yeah. And he says, hey, I have an idea. I said, what's your idea? He said, from now on, every Sunday morning, I'm going to ask you what we have this week. Do we have parties or events or holidays or any of that? So overnight, this 5-year-old kid learned how to budget. He immediately learned how to budget, right? And so, and now they're in school. If they don't have any cheats, their kids, if there's a pizza party or a donut party or whatever it is, their friends have it and they have no problem with it because they're totally at peace with the idea that I had my 4 cheats and I made my choices. Yeah. So we've empowered them. We haven't taken any, people ask me all the time, are you afraid of them rebelling? I'm like, no, because we haven't said no to anything. We've taken nothing away. All we've done is we've given them a budget. That's all we've done. And they've learned how to use that budget. Even my 4-year-old daughter knows how to use that budget. And so it's something I'm crazy passionate about. People show love, hey, great job on your test. Let's go get you some ice cream. It's like, wait a minute. Like, it's cute. Like, but let's remove the emotion. They did something really good, so you're punishing them. Like, when you really think about it, you're punishing them with ice cream. Like, that's not a reward. That's actually a punishment, right? So it's like, so how about just go spend time with them? How about go throw a ball with them? How about just give them your time? That's what they need. And the compounded effects of spending time with your kids and showing them love and how proud of them you are will outweigh any amount of gifts or sugar or whatever it is that you want to get them. Just give them your time.
I love that. And that's probably going to be the answer to this next question. But as a single male who is getting close to 30, no kids that I know of, and wants to be a father someday, I truly look forward to it. I can't wait to be a husband and a dad. But any advice for the future?
No doubt. Don't rush it. When the time is right, It's not even about the time. It's when the person is right. The person is right. It will be the best journey of your life. I hear so many times people, oh, well, my wife is pregnant. Oh, get ready to lose all your sleep. Get ready to be tired. Get ready to this. It's like, wait a minute. Then why did you have 4? Why didn't you stop after 1? If all those things were true, you just wanted something to complain about, right? Like as you embark on that journey, it will be without question the best thing that'll ever happen to you, because it will keep you honest. For the first 2, everything they say is true. The first 2 years you're with your wife, things are merging. And so you're taking 30 years that you've lived by yourself and 30 years she lived by herself, and you're putting them together. There's going to be turbulence without question. And, and every time I came back to it, what I realized was this woman made a commitment to be my partner and my best friend for the rest of my life. So anything that she challenges me on, anything that she's asking me to second guess and to be wary of, even if it was the habits that I used to have, or the places I used to hang out with my friends and all those other things, all that, she's doing it out of love and care for our partnership and our betterment together as a future, right? And so that would be my number one advice to you, is just really, really pour into making sure it's the best decision, which you're a really smart guy and I know that you will.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Fingers crossed. No, seriously, Fouad, this has been so fun. I love the diverse range of topics that we can go into. This is probably the biggest reason why I love the podcast, is just being able to invite who I want to talk about the things that we want to talk about. And I hope the listeners enjoyed it. But if you had one spot to send anyone who's listening, who's like, I want to learn more about Fouad or what he's doing or connect with him outside of the podcast, what would that link be for them?
Yeah, I would say Instagram is probably my favorite place to communicate. Fouad Bazzi, my name, FOUAD BAZZI _Airbnb. I know that's a really long name. Sorry, guys, but you only have to type it in once. Once you click the follow button, you're good. But you can click on the link in my bio, schedule some time with me. I love pouring into people. I love helping. I have a mentorship. I run my own mastermind, up here in the Midwest. And I just really, really love helping people get on the right direction. So if there's anything I can do, I'm glad to pour in.
I love it. And for the listeners, you won't have to type anything in, because the link's going to be in the show notes. So you just got to click that link and it's going to directly take you there. As always, Fouad, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. I appreciate you taking a second opportunity to record with me. And for all the listeners, you know exactly what to do. You're going to like, subscribe, all things Fouad Bazzi, and make sure that you like and subscribe to the show so that way we can continue to make amazing episodes just like this. And like always, we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.